Sasol today up 3%. Any reason why this particular stock is trading at just under 300 Rand?
Bronwyn, I have no idea. I mean, we are looking at an oil price that effectively bumped up last night in New York trading, but was slightly off to flat for most of our day. And
it's around about $74 a barrel right now on the oil price.
Yes. Added to which, we've had this discussion before. Sasol's earnings are much more geared to weakness in the currency or to movements in the currency, and the Rand's been very strong. So I've no idea why this is...
so Rand's strength should be having the opposite effect on this share price.
Absolutely. Compounding all the bad news in Sasol is there was a story that came out earlier in the week about them possibly facing sanctions in Iran with their business in Iran, sanctions from the US. So there's not a hell of a lot of good news in Sasol, yet the share price is confounding critics and keeps on going up.
The furore at African Dawn, what's happening on that front? A boardroom coup, so
absolutely, yeah, very interesting story. I mean, a couple of weeks ago we saw a cautionary coming out. One of their subsidiaries placed under provisional liquidation as a result of their investment in the CMM funds. The company is called Allegro. Following that, the AGM CEO and the FD were duly relieved of their positions. And today the announcement came out that Christo Wiese and Adolf Potgieter are amongst the non-execs that are now joining the board. Now, obviously, Christo Wiese coming with quite a balance sheet and a good reputation.
Close to 1 Rand, up just over 6.5% on the day today.
Had a nice run. Keeping in mind the share has been as high as 5 Rand a couple of years ago. Was the darling of the market. I think it won the sort of best listed company or Altex listed award and something to that effect. So it's going to be interesting to see what Mr. Wiese and Adolf do to the balance sheet.
Have you been following the interconnection fee debate happening between government, the mobile operators? Everyone's got a piece on the story. What I want to focus on from your perspective is the likes of Telkom, Vodacom, MTN. How you think the story is going to impact their share prices?
At the moment, Bronwyn, our BJM's formal house view is that the winner of the Interconnect battle would definitely be Telkom, or put it this way,
that seems to be the consensus view.
Least affected. Having said that, MTN, given their broad spread of African assets, etc., will probably on the cellular side will be least affected. Having said that, though, I struggle to quantify the numbers effectively in such a way that you can say if government's looking to cut these fees by almost half. Some analysts are calling it down 6 or down 10%. I'll like to put money on it that it might actually be more. And I'd like to see where the process is going. Having said that, it's quite concerning to see that they are now having discussions behind closed doors, because obviously speculation is rife. And I think government's brought out the big sticks and saying we are going to force the change, because previously it was consultative. Now it looks like it's going to be a one-way traffic.
So you think that the hit could be bigger to these companies than the market is anticipating?
I think so. What the market is saying is that we are looking at interconnect fees coming down, but then being cross-subsidized or made up with additional revenue coming from data feeds and so on and so forth, other revenue. I don't think other revenue is going to pick up immediately before Christmas, because this is a sort of time frame government's talking, having cut these fees before Christmas.
We're into US earnings season. Obviously, the positive momentum yesterday from JP Morgan, from Intel. We've got the banks reporting, a couple of banks reported today. Can you give me an update? It was Goldman Sachs. I couldn't remember the name of the company. I was saying a couple of banks.
Yeah, it's a little bank in the US, Goldman Sachs. Beat analyst expectations, but oddly enough, the market didn't quite react as positively as we thought. Remember, I've been quite bearish as of late. Have a bit of egg on my face, I need to add.
As the market rallies, the local market up beyond that 26,000 point level.
Yes.
Not a good time to have been bearish, but you may be right going forward now.
I think we can talk about that shortly. Goldman Sachs beating analyst expectations. It's almost, you can say tongue-in-cheek, well, what did you think with all that money coming from TARP funds? Having said that, their competitor Citi also coming in with slightly better than expected earnings. They actually made a profit, but it's quite a messy number. There's lots of once-offs and so on in the Citi numbers. Most of the analysts canvassed expected 29 cents loss. They came out with a $100 million profit. And the share, on the back of those results, the market actually took quite a hit.
I can see in our local market as well,
yes,
the banks
correct.
coming down after their big rally yesterday. I think we were up
yes.
significantly on the banking sector yesterday.
Spot on.
The revenue lines, is that a key focus area for you in terms of these US earnings, whether companies are able to grow those revenue lines, not just increase their profits by cost cutting? As we saw from Intel and JP Morgan, I think they both beat on the revenue line.
Yes, they did. Intel obviously being a bellwether and a very good indicator of broader economic activity, similarly to the retail stocks. You know, you look at some of your defensive stories, Intel's one of those classic ones. And it does look like they've weathered, or they are coming through the credit crisis quite nicely. Having said that, something like a Citi disappointing with a big exposure to home loans. So Citi is probably a slightly better indicator than for example, a Goldman Sachs or JP Morgan, who are more focused on investment banking and M&A type activity, than a Citi with its broad home loan book.
Let's come back to that call on the market that
yes.
at the moment has egg on your face, that you've been relatively bearish. But as we said, is it now going to come to fruition? Are we at overly expensive levels on the JSE?
You know, if you look at valuations relative to your risk-free rate, being government bonds, we are not overly stretched valuation terms. But the reason why I say we've had such a run, we haven't taken a breather. You know, we're hitting 52-week highs consecutively, and that's concerning, because it's almost like the market feels like it's going to run out of steam. Typically, what happens on technical basis, you can see, for example, market, when we went over 9,900 points on the Dow, you know, it was almost a gimme that it was going to go to 10. It becomes magnetic, those big levels on the indices. Critically important for the Dow to close at 10,035 points or better this Friday, because it's a weekly close. If it doesn't hold that level, we could probably see a retracement. But having said that, I've been wrong before. So,
how significant could that retracement be in your book? I mean, you must have bandied about a couple of numbers.
I'd like to see a really solid pullback in excess of 5%. So sort of coming back down to the 9,500 point level, which would be, let's call it, blow out some of the weaker holders in the market. Because what we've seen is on any small pullback, PMs have put money into the market, and there's a lot of liquidity sloshing around in the system. I mean, if you look about it carefully.
Have you got clients with money sitting on the sidelines that you've advised for them to wait for this potential decline before they deploy it into the market?
Absolutely. I mean, if you've got a new portfolio, right, starting, let's say, in the past month, you're going to struggle to justify being fully invested in the market, having received new cash in the last month or so. Obviously, there were stock picking opportunities. Typically, Naspers, we still like that story, and some of the retailers being more defensive. Following the MTN deal at about 120 Rand, we were aggressive buyers at BJM of the stock.
Of MTN? Of
MTN. Well, that was before the Interconnect debacle hit. So that was on the information.
And how did you feel about the fallout of Bharti Airtel and MTN having accumulated the MTN stock?
Oh, no, I thought that was hugely positive.
You didn't want to see the deal coming to
ideally,
fruition?
No, not really. It was just too convoluted, too complex. And there wasn't any clear value for minority shareholders in that deal. We can understand that, as Patuma put it, he gets economies of scale on the purchasing side, you know, getting that critical mass buying equipment. It just wasn't that clear coming through to shareholders where the benefit was, given the complexities of the deal.
I think the CEO, Patuma Nhleko, was a lone voice, and Paul Theron as well joined him. They are the only two that actually wanted the deal to go through. Naspers at 272 Rand. You've long been behind this stock.
Yes.
Is it still a favorite, or now is this toppish?
It is looking toppish, but having said that, the valuation, if you strip out the 10-cent asset, you know, the rest of the businesses are trading on a multiple of about P of 4. So it's not very demanding for the balance of the businesses within Naspers if you strip out the 10-cent asset. Once again, it's top management, and they've got a solid slug of equity in there.
You mentioned the retailers,
yes,
and that there's some value. Where are those pockets of value that you've identified?
Well, up until recently, we've been buying some of the more the types of the clothing stores, likes of Truworths, Mr. Price quite like. Pick n Pay and Spar obviously very defensive, being food retailers. Woolies had a nice run.